Welcome back. I'm in conversation with Dr. Sydney Mufamadi. He is, of course, a former Safety and Security Minister, but also a key driver of the review panel into the intelligence services, and he gave testimony at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Dr. Mufamadi, one of the other things that the report found was that there was a doctrinal shift from 2009, and you would describe it thus. You say there was a marked doctrinal shift in the intelligence community away from the prescripts of the Constitution, the White Paper on Intelligence and Human Philosophy, toward a much more narrower state security orientation. I mean, short, or put in short, a securitization of our politics, not so?
Yeah, you know, Ms. Brown, again, when we came into the new dispensation, we were coming there as a nation that was shaken by the carnage of colonialism and apartheid. For many years, decades actually, we lived under a system which treated any dissent as subversive opposition. People were banned for holding views that those in power did not like. People were placed under house arrest in the name of state security.
Dr. Mufamadi, let me just interrupt you there. I mean, what you're describing is precisely what Ms. Kay and you described at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. What happened, for example, we heard testimony that, one of former President Jacob Zuma's wives were, for example, held in a state security house against her will, under the pretext that she is, a person of interest in an alleged, poisoning of the president. And yet when the president was asked this question in the National Assembly by members of the opposition, he actually said categorically that he had never been poisoned by anybody. You also talk about people, being subjected to abuse because they held different political views. You talk here about the factional, battles in the African National Congress. And this is within the same party. This is not even on opposition parties. What makes a former liberation movement that is elected democratically take on the security characteristics in its intelligence agency of that of its former enemy that has which it's supposed to be the antithesis of?
Yeah, well, you see, the point is, as I was saying to you, that our system provides for oversight mechanisms.
Why do you think those oversight mechanisms fail? Because they are there.
No, that's what I'm about to explain. I'm saying our system provides for oversight mechanisms. But these mechanisms are not self-enforcing.
Yeah.
Which means that there has to be extra vigilance, both on the part of those who are deployed into these structures, into these institutions, as well as on the part of the generality of the population. And you are a media person, you are a media practitioner. For that to happen also, we need to have an independent media. You will recall that during apartheid, a lot was done either to harass the media into submission or to subvert its independence. You will recall the info scandal, the information scandal of Eshel Rudi in the 1970s. These are practices characteristic of warfare states. Now, I'm saying that we are not a warfare state. We are a democratic state, a constitutional democracy. However, if we lower our vigilance, we will find ourselves living in a country which is democratic by name and nothing more.
Absolutely. That is an incredibly powerful statement.
What you are calling the doctrinal shift of declaring, of establishing a Department of intelligence that is now called State Security Department. It's not just a theoretical thing. It has got material consequences, and the material consequences include what we saw the Special Operations Unit doing.
Now, I hear you, Dr. Mufamadi. I mean, we see this even in the police. We're supposed to be a police service, not a police force. We've seen the complaints against police brutality and, you know, human rights abuses. And there was a very particular way in which the new government then approached things. But you're correct that security mentality did take over, you know, under President Jacob Zuma. But here's the rub. You came out with this report. The president came in, you know, in 2018 and indicated that this needs to end. You put your team to work. What has happened to the implementation of the recommendations of your report? It's now 2021.
Yeah, well, as I've been really at pains to explain, the panel which I was part of, ceased to operate from December 2018. We made recommendations about what it is that we thought needed to be done to avoid the recurrence of the wrong things that happened in the period under review. But it is really the responsibility again of the people in the system, that is both the executive and the department, as well as those who are in Parliament in the relevant committee, to tell the public what is it that they've done about those recommendations. Okay. It is not our place to account about the response of the powers that be.
Now, I think that's a fair point that you're making, and we will certainly ask the presidency to respond to the recommendations, because this was a panel appointed by the president, and it would be important to see whether these recommendations in any way is going to see, you know, the light of day. Let me come back to the source of a lot of the problems here. The divisions in the governing party, you say in your report, when you talk about politicization, you say the growing contagion of the civilian intelligence community by factionalism in the African National Congress progressively worsened from 2009. Do you think the you know, fractured nature of the African National Congress is part of the reason why the security and intelligence services look the way they do at the moment?
Well, I can only say that I hope that everybody who was cited in that report will do the necessary introspection in order to determine whether they were cited fairly or unfairly. But, you know, a political party such as the ANC, which has the responsibility to look after the interests of the people of this country, because it was voted into office, has got a lot of introspection to do. And it's not an introspection that you can do by ducking difficult questions. You have to face those questions squarely in the face in order to be able to place yourselves once more in a position where the expected service by the public is something that you would then be in a position to render. In other words, you have to pose the question of fitness for purpose.
Absolutely. Now, just a last question to you quickly. Some newspapers report that some of the key political heads of intelligence, like Minister Ayanda Dlodo, is going to be asked to come to the African National Congress to come and do some explaining together with other senior members in the intelligence community. Do you think such a move actually helps or hinders that process of trying to extract the intelligence services out of party political control?
No. Look, ANC has got some responsibility towards the nation. A responsibility of custodianship, which is not necessarily identical with the relationship, the responsibility that Cabinet has. But it has some resonance with that relationship. So it is good for ANC deployees to be made to account to the party which deployed them, to be made to account to the citizenry, because they are now sitting in public office. But of course, it's important that these two capacities should not be confused, because in the final analysis, those who are sitting in parliament, those who are sitting in the executive or in the organs of state such as the security intelligence agency have a responsibility to be impartial in the way they render services to the population.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. Important points there made by Dr. Sydney Mufamadi. Still ahead, what's the Biden administration likely to do differently in Africa and the Middle East? Don't go anywhere.